Alright guys, so as you all know, the movie Superman came out this week and it's getting rave reviews. You know, a lot of people are seeming to love it. Some other people are seeming to not like it as much as others. But with that being said, I wanted to go ahead and do a video after watching this film on the future of the DC universe going forward, especially in the movie realm, and just talk about what we can see going forward and my ideas, my thoughts about what's going to happen in the future now that James Gunn's Superman has been released and we've all seen it. And of course, it is the starting point for the brand new DCU. Now, first things first, let's talk about the characters that we're going to be seeing here. For instance, James Gunn has stated publicly that the Blue Beetle film is going to be canon inside this new DCU. So while Superman is like the official starting point, things that came before it may or may not be included in these films and in this universe going forward. So Blue Beetle being in the DCU, I'm not sure how I feel about it, guys. Quite honestly, I did not enjoy that movie, which I know may be a shock to some of you because it has a great audience score right now, like a 90%. So a majority of people definitely enjoyed that movie. It even has a good critic score. I wasn't that fond of Blue Beetle when it released. Maybe I have to go back and watch that film, give it a second chance. But I think as a character, especially like a side character that's just making cameos, appearances, things like that, I think it could be interesting. I wouldn't mind it too much, and I wouldn't mind seeing what they do with this character in the future in the DCU if James Gunn follows through with his word and does plan on continuing with Blue Beetle being inside the DCU. If not that, then I would say we probably won't be seeing this character whatsoever anymore if he decides like that he doesn't enjoy any film other than Superman being inside the DCU canon, which he may just go ahead and do because Superman seems to be performing well right now, and I don't think James Gunn wants to remind the audience of anything DC that came before the Superman film, because it just puts us back into the Snyderverse, which the general audience definitely was not vibing with. All right, so he says it's going to happen. He says Blue Beetle is going to be in these films going forward, but I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen. And I'm warning you guys right now, you should not be surprised either. So we'll see how well that take ages, but let's move on to my next point that I wanted to make and talk about for the DCU going forward, and that would be Batman, because this is what I really care about. As you can see, man, I'm a big Batman fan. This is my favorite superhero of all time. It's been that way since I was a little kid, watching Batman movies, watching, you know, animated series, things like that. So I think it's an interesting topic to discuss, especially considering that we had a successful Batman film with the 2022 The Batman movie starring Robert Pattinson as, of course, Batman. And I gotta say, I absolutely love that film. It's one of my favorite films in recent years and easily one of my favorite comic book films of all time. I think it's a masterpiece. Like, it's that well done. If you don't share that same opinion, I'd recommend you go back and watch it, give it a second take, because they put heart and soul into that movie, and I think it really resonated with the fans. You know, even though the box office for it was not anything like overly successful for what a Batman film should be, because let's be honest, a Batman film should be hitting like $1 billion at the box office every single time because the entire world loves Batman. But we'll say they got damn close. It hit $772 million at the box office, so it was a very successful movie. And I think what they did with the character inside that movie of Batman, you know, the way he's a year two Batman, by the time we see the next film that's supposed to release in 2027, hopefully they do not push that movie back anymore, because that would be a tragedy. Batman's more than likely going to be years in by that point and a lot more experienced as a superhero than Superman at that point in time. And considering that they are going through with the Batman 2, James Gunn said he's read the script for the Batman 2. You know, Matt Reeves came out and said the script is finished. I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to integrate what was supposed to be its own universe in Batman and bring him into the DCU. I think it would fit perfectly. I really do, guys. After watching Superman tonally, I think the Batman would be a great addition to this universe. So with it being a very grounded take on the character, I could see it being a problem trying to fit in with Superman, because after watching that movie, the intergalactic forces that they had to deal with inside that film, the Batman we seen in 2022 stands no chance. But again, it was a year two Batman. It was an amateur Batman, you know, finding his footing, still learning what it means to be a hero and not just a vigilante. I think with a proper script, with proper writing, you could definitely find a way to level up Batman somewhat to the level of at least like a Mr. Terrific that we got to see inside the Superman film and include him here in this universe. I think Pattinson would make a good fit here. He did a phenomenal job with this role, and I just want to see more of that universe. I know we're going to get it regardless with the Batman 2 releasing, but I want it to be a part of the DCU. I do. I think it would be nice to see David Corenswet's Superman and Robert Pattinson's Batman on the screen together, right? That world's finest comic book team up. And I don't think we should do Batman v Superman again. Let's stay away from that, okay? Let's not remind the audience of what they didn't like in the past, what the general audience didn't like in the past, even though I do not think that movie is as bad as people try to make it out to be, especially if you watch the director's cut for that film. It's a much superior version of that film. I recommend you go back and watch that if you're interested in it. But yeah, I think a team-up movie between Superman and Batman where they're working together and just having like kind of a buddy cop type of film, it would be fantastic. I really do. I think that film would feed generations, and I just need that. All right, I need that in my soul. I need to see Batman and Superman come together in a film together and take on some huge threat together. I think that would be fantastic. Now, let's move on to other characters inside the DCU that we're more than likely going to be seeing. Of course, we are not going to see Ezra Miller's Flash inside the DCU because of everything that happened outside of the films with Ezra Miller, right? He's not that great of a person, which can be an understatement after seeing some of the videos that dropped with that guy, but also characters like Jason Momoa's Aquaman, right? That's pretty much done and dead, though we could see him take up the character of Lobo in the future. I know that's his dream role. That's what Jason Momoa has wanted to do for a very long time, and I think he gave us a good Aquaman, and he can give us an even better Lobo with a proper script, proper writing, and I wouldn't be against seeing Jason Momoa return to the DCU, but under a different character. I think Lobo would fit him very well. Now, let's talk Wonder Woman, all right? Because I actually think the first Wonder Woman film that we got to see was a good take on the character. I know it resonated with the general audience, and the second movie didn't so much. That dropped during a weird time, so the audience didn't gravitate towards that movie whatsoever, and the performance in that film was not as strong as we needed to be. So I could see a stronger Wonder Woman being cast here. We definitely need Wonder Woman in the DCU. That's not to be debated whatsoever. You know, characters like Blue Beetle, you know, lower, more B tier, C tier, D tier characters we don't need inside the DCU right off the gate, but Wonder Woman is an A-lister. We need Wonder Woman, so how they're going to do that, I'm not sure, but I'm looking forward to seeing Wonder Woman return to the DCU and, you know, be in a team-up film with the Justice League. I'm looking forward towards a Justice League film, though. That's probably a lot of years down the line. If we're going to be completely honest, we probably will not be seeing a Justice League film until we're getting closer to reaching the year 2030, if not, you know, maybe a 2029. If they manage to speed up the production of these movies. James Gunn has said that he wants to release at least 2 films a year, along with like series dropping on HBO Max, things like that. Now, if you ask me personally, I think that's doing way too much. Of course, they're trying to go the Marvel route, but look how that turned out for Marvel. A lot of people started getting Marvel fatigue after we got TV show after TV show after TV show premiering on Disney Plus. It became a bit too much to keep up with, which is completely different than if we were just going to the movie theater to watch, you know, 2 to 3 films a year. But you never know. I think if it's done well enough, it can definitely work, and they've done a great job so far with the series that they have dropped, such as The Penguin, a fantastic series. I believe I rated that series like a 10 out of 10. Phenomenal performance from Colin Farrell with The Penguin, and also with Peacemaker. That show's doing very well right now. People loved season 1. I have yet to finish season 1 and fully get around to it, so I'll definitely make sure I do that, considering John Cena's Peacemaker is going to be inside the DCU going forward. We know that for a fact now because he made a cameo inside the Superman film, which it was hilarious. It got a great crowd pop. You know, they really reacted to that scene, so we'll definitely be seeing him make other little appearances going forward, and I think that's going to be pretty enjoyable. Of course, season 2 of Peacemaker is coming up here soon this year, and if that performs well, then who am I to say, you know, let's not just go ahead and get these TV shows in here. More DC, the better, because they're doing a great job so far. Superman is really strong. The Batman's really strong. Again, we'll see what they do with that. But also, Peacemaker and the Penguin are doing fantastic. So I think we're building a very strong foundation here with these 2 head superheroes for DC, that being Superman, Batman, the most iconic there outside of Wonder Woman, with that being, of course, like the trinity of the DC universe. And I'd love to see how they continue building this in the future. Now, I think we'll finish up here with talking about James Gunn's timeline, you know, his movie slate that he actually released and put out to the audience. So we actually have, you know, an idea and a direction and a clear vision out of James Gunn for where we're going to be going with the DCU in the future. So let's go ahead and talk about the timeline slate that he put out. Of course, the first film we're getting is Superman, which we've already gotten. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned it. Go check out my Superman review. All right. I put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of love into that video. I had a great time making it, and I'd love if more people would enjoy it and watch it. So go ahead and check that out just to plug, you know, my own video. But next on the list is going to be Supergirl. Now, spoilers. Very, very slight spoiler. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, slight spoilers for Superman. Supergirl was at the end of that film, and she is going to be our next movie slated for the DCU. How do I think that's going to turn out? Well, to be honest with you guys, I was not fond of that little 1 minute that we got with Supergirl inside the Superman movie. I thought it was done a little distasteful, a little weird, a weird take on the character, but we'll see how it turns out with a full movie with more screen time. I'm sure, you know, I'll warm up to her character. They got a fantastic lead actor to play that character, or actress, if you'd like to say it that way. I know times are changing, you know, they kind of want you to say actor nowadays, but yeah, the lead from that film comes from the TV show House of the Dragon, right? And I think she'll do a fantastic job in this character role if it's written properly. Again, I keep saying it in this video because really everything boils down to that. All right, we're getting like the best of the best actors for these roles, but for it to work, we need a well-written story, we need a great script, and if we have those two things, I think magic will happen in the future going forward, especially with the proper directors for these films. Of course, we had James Gunn directing the first Superman film, but going forward, I highly doubt James Gunn's going to do all of these movies himself, right? He's going to reach out, get other directors to come to the DCU and make these movies for him, which I think will also make his job a lot easier because James Gunn has a whole lot on his plate right now. So if Supergirl turns out well, we're moving in a great direction, and I have the list pulled up right here. So the next thing slated here is going to be a Clayface movie. This is supposed to be dropping later in 2026. So Supergirl, Clayface, that's what we'll be getting this year. And if you ask me, it's a weird choice. Why are we getting what is a villain movie, right? Clayface, as to my understanding, to my knowledge, is a Batman villain. Why is he getting his own solo film? I don't really know. He's not that big of a character. He's not Joker, right? Joker got his own film. That made sense. But Clayface, it's a weird choice. There's other Batman villains that are a lot more well-known. Hell, there's other tons of DC villains from all of the different heroes, mythos, and universes. So going with Clayface, a weird choice, but if it works, it works, man. I'm trusting in James Gunn. I think he's done a great job with films up to this point, and I just hope he knows what he's doing with the Clayface movie. That one worries me a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. Now, next we're supposed to have The Authority. I don't know much about that, so let's move on to the next project listed here with The Brave and the Bold. Is going to be our introduction for Batman into the DCU. At least that's what's slated right now. Now, of course, that means James Gunn isn't planning for the Batman to be in the DCU, the one that we got with Robert Pattinson. But again, the first film did great. Great response from the audience. The audience loved it. If the second film does great, I don't see how you can introduce a second Batman while we have Pattinson's Batman on film and going strong and people wanting more of that. I think that would really just divide the audience right down the middle. They wouldn't really understand what's going on. Why do we have these Batman's movies dropping while simultaneously this other version of Batman is dropping? It's going to be weird having two lead Batmans at once, and that's just going to rip DC right down the middle. I hope and pray that they do not take that route. I think that is a terrible idea, though I would understand why they want to do it, because they probably want a Batman that's a little more closer to the comic books, which I think Pattinson did a fantastic job, and the Batman movie in general did a fantastic job with implementing some of the Batman's comics, such as The Long Halloween. That's sort of the story that that movie follows. But again, it's a very grounded Batman, so I can see them wanting more of an over-the-top Batman to fit into the DCU, to fit better with their Superman. Though again, after seeing Superman, I think the one we already have would do well with it. I really do. Though if we do get The Brave and the Bold, I think it could be really interesting. You know, a Batman that's a lot of years in. He's already had some Robins under his belt. Maybe he's on his first. I guess we'll see when the film releases. We get more details about that. But, you know, a Batman that's a lot more powered up, because Pattinson's Batman is so grounded that I'm having a hard time imagining him on film with the Superman. Like, how is he going to help Superman whatsoever if they don't at least level him up to the level of a Mr. Terrific again, which I think with a brand new Batman, a Brave and the Bold, that would be a lot easier to do, one that's actually a formidable force inside of these films for the DCU. But again, we'll see what they do with that going forward. Now, there is a lot more films slated here, but the last one I wanted to discuss and talk about is Swamp Thing. Now, again, very interesting choice, pulling a more obscure character to the surface. Swamp Thing is a hero in the comics, so I'm interested to see what they're going to do with this character. I don't know too much about this character, so I'm gonna have to do some more research on that, especially as we get closer to the release of this film. But again, I just hope James Gunn knows what he's doing here. I think he does. You know, he has a great head on his shoulders, a great plan for DC, but we gotta pull more of the core and central Justice League into this. Why are we spending so much time building up, you know, other characters, things like that, that more than likely aren't going to be a part of the Justice League, right? We already have our main Justice League with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg. But again, maybe he's choosing to stay away from that because we did just get Zack Snyder's Justice League in the year 2021. And then of course before that we got like a Joss Whedon version in 2017, I want to say. So maybe he wants to stay away from that, not remind the audience of it, because it sort of just happened, right? It would be very soon to go ahead and do that again with the same type of characters. But I mean, I don't see another way you could do this. What are we going to put Swamp Thing into the Justice League? I guess you could. I guess we can go with an untypical type of Justice League, but I would like to see the core essential characters all get their own films and lead up to this. Very similar to what Marvel did with the Avengers, right? We already have the blueprint there. We already know what works. We build up the main core characters for a big team up film, and then in that team up film or along the way in each of the films, you can include side characters that are also a part of the team, and they won't need to have their own movie, right? It's exactly what they did with the characters of Black Widow, of Hawkeye, and it worked perfectly. The audience liked it, they enjoyed it, and then we got already the main films for the rest of the members of that team. And I think that was a great plan out of Marvel. So I'd like to see DC do something similar here, building up to a Justice League film, because we definitely need that in the future. Now, I feel like we've talked about this enough. We discussed this enough. I pretty much got out all that I wanted to say about this thing. But again, there is other films slated here that we didn't get around to, so maybe we will in the future. I guess we'll see. But yeah, those are my thoughts and ideas going forward about the DC universe. I'm extremely excited to see where it's going to go in the future. I love DC through and through. They have some of my favorite superheroes, some of my favorite characters. They have my favorite of all time with Batman almost at the forefront of their films, of their team up. So I'm very invested into this. I mean, even during Marvel's golden age, when DC films weren't doing that well, I was still a DC guy because of their characters, everything they've done in the past, their games that released, the Injustice games, things like that, the Batman trilogy games, all fantastic, right? So going forward, we'll definitely be covering any new news, things like that drop, anything James Gunn has to say about this going forward. And yeah, I'd love to know your guys' thoughts about the new DC universe that we have under James Gunn. Do you think it's going to go well in the future? Are you worried about the film slated here, because it is an interesting lineup of movies going forward? Go ahead and share your thoughts about that down in the comment section down below. If you don't know what we do here on Demigod ENT, we do film and TV reactions and reviews and other movie-based content. So if you're interested in this movie-based content, in the right place, hit subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.